Welcome to the OnScript podcast, your home for world-class conversations on scripture and theology, where you get to meet some of the best in the field. Visit us at onscript.study. Say hello on Twitter at OnScriptPodcast and stop by our Facebook page at facebook.com/OnScript.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the OnScript podcast. This is Matt Lynch. I'm a host with Matt Bates, Dru Johnson, Aaron Heim, and Chris Tilling. In this episode, Dru and I are hosting the guys from the Bible Project. We hope you enjoy. Hello everyone, and welcome to the OnScript podcast. I'm Matt Lynch, hosting today with Dru Johnson. Hey Dru.
Hello there.
Our guests today are likely familiar to all of you, Tim, Mackie, and Jon Collins from the Bible Project. Hi, guys. Welcome to OnScript.
Hey. Hey there.
Yeah, great to have you guys. I think I could probably speak for a lot of us who do stuff in the Bible that we've made use of and really benefited from what you guys are doing. So thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, can I give my first encounter with the Bible Project was a freshman student saying, "Oh, I watch these Bible videos on YouTube, and you should watch them." And of course, the first thought, I'm sure you've heard this story a million times from various people, first thought that goes through my mind is, "Oh, brother,
oh, no. No.
I need to find something polite to say about these videos and move away from them quickly." And so they sent me a link, and I started watching one, and I'm watching and watching, going, "Wait, this doesn't suck. This is actually really good. Hey, wait, these guys know what they're doing. They actually are, they're doing real biblical theology." And I got converted in one video. In fact, so much so I had to look you guys up and figure out, it was so semi-miraculous to me. I had to figure out what was going on in the world that someone was making these videos.
Yeah, can anything good come out of YouTube?
Yeah, my first introduction was... Tim, you know Travis Bott, right?
Yeah, that's
friend
right.
of ours
we
who
both know.
teaches Old Testament. He showed me the New Heavens and New Earth video.
Yeah.
Is that your first one?
Oh, yeah, just Heaven and Earth. Yep. Yeah, but that was among our first videos. Yep.
Yeah, and that was such a good video, and I started showing that to people, and so I think that's probably how it happens, right? They catch on. But yeah, do you guys look back at that video and think, we're still really proud of that, or are you thinking, I would do all these things differently now?
John has a bit of a different eye than I do because he's a little more design and video production minded. There's a few things I'd tweak.
Yeah, I think we're pretty proud of that Heaven and Earth one.
Yeah, I still really like what we said.
It's really basic. In fact, we're making a video on the Son of Man right now, and it's going to have that same basic doodle style we call back of the napkin or doodle style.
Yeah, we've ended up doing a few videos in that same type of artistic style where we're trying to make it both funny, usually because it's a heavy topic, so we're trying to inject humor and stick figures and silly drawings like that, kind of make for a good communication strategy, it turns out.
Yeah. Now, I like that you guys play with styles. What's a favorite video that you guys have done?
That one is a favorite, and then Holiness is one of my favorites. I'm
really proud of the Job video.
Oh yeah.
Even
and
though
Ecclesiastes,
actually of other videos, there's many things I'd want to go back and maybe say a little differently, but we kind of just handed that one over. We were trying out, I remember, a new storyboard process with our team, and so they just ran with the script, and what they came up with is just visually stunning. I just am really proud of the team for what they were able to produce.
The one, it's probably the same style. The one I probably show people the most often is the Proverbs video.
Oh yes, yeah, totally.
The first one with with woman wisdom weaving. She's got that needle and thread and
the thread of the universe. That was Kayla, who's one of our storyboard leads. That was her idea, and I was immediately hooked. I was like, yeah, that's such a good illustration.
I'm surprised nobody. You didn't say the Mishpat or the Justice one. I wonder if you got any pushback on that.
We really like that one. I always forget about that one. I don't know why.
It looks incredibly complicated to make. I mean,
we spent the most time and resources on that video than any video
up to that point. Yeah, that's right.
Still, even to this point.
It had those boxes, and there's a lot of 3D art happening.
And then we composited in frame by frame animation. We did get in a little bit of trouble with some people. In fact, we had just gotten a new donor, like a big monthly donor, the week before we released that video. And then
that's right, I forgot about this.
Do you remember this?
Yes.
And then he thought it was too a social justice warrior kind of video, and then didn't want to contribute anymore.
Yeah.
Which, I'd say out of any video, that one probably, but not, that didn't happen much at all.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've tried to stay away from hot topics and just do the videos that people don't know that they need. And then once they see them, they can see like, oh, wow, that's so helpful. So we've pretty much stayed clear of the hot topics.
Just don't start pushing that widow, orphan, and foreigner agenda.
I know, right?
Because it just occurs a few times.
Even the foreigner thing right now.
Yeah, totally.
Man. So maybe it would help our listeners if you just explain the inception of the Bible Project, how you guys collaborated, how you got together and came up with this idea, and did you envision it sort of taking on the shape it has?
No, we didn't envision where it's at, but we met in undergrad here in Portland at a small Bible school called Multnomah, and then Tim went on to just be a geek like you guys, and then I got into film and started doing explainer videos for mainly tech companies. And
isn't that being a geek?
Different kind
by
of
the way,
geek.
our constituency prefers the
communication geek,
nerd or Bible nerd, if you please.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Yes,
I apologize. Nerd.
That's right. Yeah, when among friends, I don't use it, but when I'm talking to our general audience, that's how they perceive Bible scholars.
Yeah,
Bible nerds.
Nerdy.
Yeah, just speaking the language of people. You know.
Yeah, my wife says I'm 1/3 nerd. Is what she likes to say. I think Tim's like 2/3 nerd. Maybe a full nerd. Yeah. So the idea was, can we do that same kind of explanation with visuals and short videos, but not for like cloud computing and that kind of stuff, but for biblical theology. And so we teamed up on that about 5 years ago. Tim moved back to Portland from Madison, Wisconsin, where you were going to school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you originally pitched the idea to me. I had moved back to be an adjunct professor at Western Seminary here in Portland, and then a teaching pastor at a church here. And Jon had another job too. So we both had lots to do, but he pitched the idea of let's just work on a couple of videos. And so, because he had a studio running for his company. So we just worked on the first two videos, which was Genesis 1-11 and Heaven and Earth for about a year and a half. We tinkered with the idea and That's also right. with the crowdfunding model. That was mostly Jon's effort. Like, how do he create an engine where we could make more of them if we wanted to?
Yeah.
And a year and a half in the making. And then we launched the YouTube channel in 2014. And at the end, just waved at people and said, hey, we would make some more if you guys want to help us. And people started donating, and we were able just to kind of make one video at a time. And we did that for a while.
Yeah. And then people have been really generous. And so it got to the point where we were able to hire people full-time, designers, and build a studio around the project. And now we're putting out a video every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. It's our 5th year as a operating studio.
Yeah.
And
you and I moved over to do this full-time kind of at different points. You about 2 years ago and me about a year and a half ago. And
so I could imagine like what full-time, actually I'm not sure I can, but I could guess at what full-time looks like for you, Jon, running a media studio. But Tim, are you sort of like locked away in a room with lots of books producing content, or what does it look like for you to be full-time with the Bible Project?
Yeah, it's kind of like being a research professor. But my classroom is Jon.
Yeah.
So we sit in
and then everyone gets to listen in on it.
Yeah, we sit in this room.
Yeah.
And I'm just drawing up materials and reading like I would to prepare for a class on this or that. And And then I'd take Jon through the syllabus, through the notes. Yeah. So it's pretty sweet. I've been teaching part-time for years in different graduate settings, mostly seminary settings. But I stepped back from that even just last year to just do this because I find I can do my best work if I just have one thing going in my life. So it's like being a research professor without having to grade any papers or serve on any faculty committees.
Don't rub it in.
He does have that one honorary student, so...
I have a very incessant question asker.
Pastors in with questions. I mean, Jon, you have a real unique ability to ask probing and really helpful questions.
Yes, he does.
Is that something that were you kind of like that through school, or did you?
Yeah, my mom hated me as a child.
His mom does actually often tell stories that this is a lifelong trait of his. Yeah.
You went through a wise stage and never came out?
I just, never got satisfied with, I don't know what it is, but I like to understand.
It's not only true of your faith and of Bible and theology, but you do have a particular angst when it comes to sorting through your worldview.
I like to understand things. I like it when things are clear and coherent. But I'm also really comfortable with ambiguity. So I think it's kind of a combination of those two things that's helpful. And then I'm also just really forgetful. So I often just have to keep
you forget
asking the same questions
your biggest
over and
video
over.
you've ever made. You completely forgot about it. You might even have children you're not aware of.
Right.
I think I think you guys do a good job of, and this is the thing that I've really appreciated, is you do try to clarify. You try to find a single thread through a complicated tapestry of text. But I don't feel like you guys ever erase the ambiguity or try to relieve the viewer or do any hand waving and saying, hey, there's not complicated or difficult things to reconcile here.
Yeah, it's a difficult balance. We often joke that if it were just me doing the writing, all the videos would be half an hour, and we would have only made 3, and nobody would watch them. The combination of our brains works in this unique way we've discovered. But the cutting room floor of after we're done with the final script of any video is just piled high with really good stuff that just, for the sake of the video to be clear, we end up leaving out all kinds of stuff that is important but just not essential. But those are hard judgment calls to make when you're dealing with a set of texts that, as you said, Dru, I mean, right? These scriptural texts are so densely interwoven with overlapping themes. They're all progressing as you go through the Hebrew Bible and the New Testament. It's hard to separate one out, but we try.
One of the questions I had for you guys, it has to do with one of the recurring ideas that comes through in all your videos and in your podcast as well, and that's that you've emphasized the Bible as a unified story, and that's in some ways a quite popular idea at the moment in kind of biblical studies and even some popular writing on the Bible as well. What's the basis for that idea? What kind of put you on to that notion, and what do you think are the limits of that idea as well?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. Part of it has to do with my introduction to the Bible, which wasn't really in childhood. The Bible was kind of around in our family, but really I was introduced to it in my early 20s as I was really just discovering Christian faith. And I was in a college setting, and so my first attempts to read the Bible were happening at the same time I'm taking Intro to Biblical Literature classes at Multnomah University. And I just, I happened to have this awesome professor who was a biblical theology enthusiast, and he was really excited in reading and doing work in all of the Israeli narrative theorists. And so I often look back, I'm reading the Bible for the first time, and I'm reading Shimon Bar Ephrat and Robert Alter and even Meyer Sternberg. I tried to read Miles Sternberg, and I'm 21 years old. I have to look up every other word in the dictionary. But I was just amazed because all of a sudden these texts that I had really marginalized in my own life, I realized the depth, the sophistication of what I'm encountering here. And so, that's an approach that, whether it's Alter or Sternberg, they're kind of famous dichotomies of discourse-oriented or source-oriented approaches to the Bible. And so I think I just had this disposition from early on of assuming there is coherence, cohesion, and literary sophistication. Even though I encounter these texts as sometimes like, what on earth? Why that here? Why is God killing Moses and want to kill Moses in one story and then commissioning him in the next? That kind of thing. So I think that there was just formative influences from early on. I was introduced to the work of John Sailhammer, who was a really important but also kind of eccentric voice in conservative Protestant Hebrew Bible scholarship. And so it wasn't just like, the Bible's a story. It's that the final shape of the Hebrew Bible is I think, historically, you can historically ground this, it's a literarily cohesive work making an overall narrative argument. And that Second Temple Jewish readers were completely attuned to reading these texts, which they encountered as a collection of scrolls, but they read and think of it as a unified statement. So for me, it's about more than narrative theory. It's actually about how these texts came into existence and were read in their early periods. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And what do you think are some of the limits to thinking about the Bible as a story?
Well, I mean, one is just like genre. Like, obviously, a third of it's poetry. However, these large poetic anthologies, whether it's, the Psalms or any of the prophets, they are given prose frames, whether it's by the superscripts or superscriptions or narratives embedded that are linking them into a narrative framework. So I'm happy to commit myself to saying the main overarching framework of the Hebrew Bible, and then the way the apostles link it all together too, is a unified narrative framework. So I don't know. There probably are limits. Right now, I'm just exploring that horizon because it's so huge.
Sorry. Well, just pushing this line, so I went and rewatched some videos in preparation for this. All of them, in fact, I just binged watched for 3 days straight.
I wonder how long would that take?
I'm not sure how long that takes now.
So I of course, I gravitated towards some of the text I was more familiar with the literature on. And so I went to Mark as the one that I thought was really interesting because you opened up with your outline, your summary, with it's all about the Messiah or something to that extent. And my first thought was like, oof, wow, I can hear like Markan scholars rolling around a little bit with that. Which some would, right? And it made me think of Joanna Dewey's comment. She says, quote, "A scholar's outline of Mark tells us more about which aspect of the gospel narrative is his or her focus than it does about Mark's structure." So that Mark just becomes a mirror of the scholar. So I wonder, you have to get, I'm sure every single book, if you run into a scholar, they're going to push back on whatever you do. So there's always this danger of creating an image of the book or an outline that is always going to be at odds with some biblical scholarship. But I wonder, Mark, or maybe some of the other books, the videos that you are more fond of, if it's not Mark, what do they reflect about you guys? Like, how do these videos specifically reflect you two, or the project that you work on? And does it ever factor in, like, do you ever just anticipatorily go like, I don't even want to answer the emails that we're going to get about this one? Or do you guys like plow through and just kind of take the hits as they come?
Well, I mean, I don't think our audience is generally biblical scholars.
Yeah.
So I think biblical scholars, when they do come into contact with our work, generally have the reaction that you had, which was, "Oh, this isn't so bad.
Totally.
This is better than I thought."
Yeah.
And so they're pleasantly surprised, and And then for the average viewer, I think they it's just a really helpful framework.
Yeah, or it's just to start reading through a brand new concept that these books have in organizing.
Oh yeah,
design and focus, and the sequence of the material of the biblical whatever poems and stories. There's intention. There's a narrative argument at work. So. Yeah, man, I already want to go back and redo half the videos where we like lay out the literary design
of
the book. Well, or what it is that's exactly right, Drew. Like, depending on the themes you want to highlight, it's kind of like a different set of glasses, when you're looking at a tapestry, and if you're wearing red-hued glasses, a whole bunch of things will pop. But if you have blue-tinged or whatever, sunglasses, different things will pop. But I think that's just a feature of these texts. They're just so incredibly dense that talking about the structure is actually very difficult. And my thinking is really developing on this. I think more accurate would be to say there's multiple overlapping design patterns. And actually visually, we could probably do this one day if we make a video about this. You could overlay different things on top of each other, different designs. Yeah,
the catchphrase for Mark's Gospel is it's an interwoven tapestry.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think that's true of all of this literature, not just biblical, of Second Temple Jewish literature. It's just incredibly dense material because it assumes such an intertextual universe. I always feel like it's a semi-finished product when we ship a video out, because I know in a year I'll want to slice the pie a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. But all the same,
very much like putting a book manuscript out
to get the conversation going.
Except you don't get quick
you
feedback
guys know exactly
when you put the book out. You have to wait a year or two before you get a review.
That's good.
Yeah, that is something about this project is there's instant feedback. Yeah, which is helpful.
Yeah,
we know if it's working or not.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that kind of the idea of looking at it through different frames or different possible frameworks kind of gets back to the question I was asking as well about reading the Bible as a coherent story. I don't know if you've seen there's a Theo Ed, so it's like TED but Theo Ed video that Brent Strawn does, and it's called The Bible as Poetry, and he says, have you seen that?
No.
Okay, so he says, instead of thinking of the Bible as a story, what if we thought about the Bible as a poem or a poetry? And then he kind of explores what he makes a case for, like, why that's a preferred way to look at it. And I'm not sure that it's preferred necessarily, but when you put on that lens, that set of lenses, and look at the Bible as a grand poem or as poetry, as the dominant framework for looking at it, it kind of reveals all sorts of other things. And he was making the case that, like, poetry can do things that narrative can't, and that accounts for the diversity we have in the Bible and a whole range of other things. So it's really interesting.
Man, yeah, that's kind of a front edge of my own actually thinking right now is the way that Hebrew narrative works, which deeply influenced the way narrative works in the Gospels and Acts too, is like that. It's where the linear sequence isn't always the determining factor in why things are ordered the way they are. There's often other features of symmetry or pairing, a lot like parallelism works. Yeah. And so, it's an open horizon for discovery. What do you call this? Do you call this poetry? Do you call it narrative, or do you just call it biblical literature?
I've been calling this... There's an Assyriologist who just wrote a book on Babylonian epistemology, and he calls it pointillism, kind of like a pointillist painting. There's lots of dots, and no one dot makes the coherent whole. But pulling them back together, you see lines, arcs. You can actually draw narratives in a pointillist painting, but that's not all there is. And that's Mark van der Meerup at Columbia. It's good stuff. You have to read a long way. Yeah, you have to read a long way to get to that point. But
I think that's a bigger part of what we're trying to do with the project, and this for a popular audience that we're aiming this at. But I think it's just the ability to come to these texts that for many people, especially if they've grown up in religious communities, they think they already know what these biblical texts are about. And so to defamiliarize them and to realize they represent a way of conceiving of reality that is so different. And to be able to hear these texts on their own terms, just that right there is a paradigm shift for a lot of people. And just focusing on the design of these texts or how poetry works in the Bible, it's different than the way we might think of poetry. That itself is a major goal of our project, is just to help people see this literature on its own terms.
Do you remember how that phrase, a unified story, how that even came to be our catchphrase?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It wasn't really
somewhere back there.
I don't remember having a big strategic conversation about it.
You guys totally need a I can tell at this point. You're already losing your institutional knowledge.
Yeah, that phrase.
Day by day.
We even have conflicting origin stories. Like there's some barbecue conversation involved in Jon's backyard, but then also a breakfast conversation, and then a conversation in my office.
Well, I mean, the Bible starts out with 2 stories of origin.
Well, there
so it's
you go.
Not that...
Thank you. Yeah. It's good affirmation.
Wow. I was going to suggest a superhero parallel.
Jon, so you studied some theology in your undergrad, and I think in your bio it said you did work as a pastor too, right?
I did a year.
Okay, all right. Hey,
in my like mid-20s.
That could be a long time if you're pastoring. But my question was really about how your views of the Bible have evolved in the course of doing this project.
Yeah. Oh, a lot. I mean, I feel like my undergrad experience was completely different than Tim's. Tim started on this journey and went in deep, and I left feeling just as confused as ever, and still really hungry to understand, but just felt ill-equipped to do that. In fact, I mean, that's one big reason why I decided not to continue in ministry. I was just like, I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, I can't get up here and keep telling people what the Bible means. I have no idea. So this has really helped me come back to the Bible. I'd really given up. I hadn't given up. I mean, I still had this deep hope for and appreciation of the Bible, but wasn't really trying to understand it anymore. And so this has really redeemed that for me. It's helped me see it as ancient literature, which I never really thought of it as, which is kind of a strange thing to say out loud. Because the emphasis was always on its relational, divine kind of quality of you and God and this book, kind of the Devo kind of paradigm. And so thinking of it as very sophisticated literature has been really, really mind-opening for me.
Wait, is Devo paradigm is that a thing?
Devotional?
You say Devo
exactly.
for
Devotional.
for my age.
Not like
okay.
What do you mean?
I'm like, we're supposed to read it?
You put on Devo tracks while you're reading the Bible.
Yeah, that's how we did it.
And note to Ed, mix in Devo in the background at this part of the conversation.
Yeah. Well, Jon, that reminds me of a phrase that Tim, our mutual friend Travis, used actually one time in describing a life lessons approach to the Bible that he had grown up with, and switching from that to reading it as literature and as theological literature. That's from a completely different world, and it's a massive shift because I think a lot of our experience in the church is we go, particularly with the Old Testament, we go back to a story and squeeze some life lesson out of the story of Samson.
And it usually involves having to rewrite the story so that all the terrible things these people do don't sound like they're being endorsed. You know?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it doesn't work as a paradigm.
Yeah. I had someone say to me one time, like, well, with the approach that's used, that life lessons approach, why don't we turn to the flood and say, hey kids, sometimes God gets so angry that everybody drowns.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I think Jon's story is significant. It's really informs everything that we do. You've used this phrase about coming to a point where you were becoming a post-Bible Christian.
Yeah.
It was actually confusing you more than aiding you in understanding Christian faith. And from years in pastoral ministry, so many people, if they're honest, and not everybody has a space to be honest. If they are honest, that's the challenge the Bible poses.
Yeah, that's another thing, is you kind of have to pretend that you are hanging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and obviously that's a tragedy, because what's being ignored or not heard is the real thing that these texts are trying to communicate.
That's one thing I really appreciate about my role in this project versus, for example, working at a church as a pastor, is there was this sense of, I have to have the answers, and I don't have the freedom to ask questions and to sit in ambiguity. And in this project, I'm encouraged to, and I'm allowed to be the dumbest guy in the room and ask questions and be confused and let the confusion really fester until we can come out the other side. And I really like that. And so this is it's a ministry in a sense, but not in the typical sense that I have understood ministry, because I don't have to pretend that I know what I'm doing.
Right. Do you guys ever, this is kind of a technical question, but do you ever testbed your explanations? Like, I think I was one of those people who became a Christian as an adult, 19 or 20 years old, and I had not read the Bible before that point in my life. And I remember, like, reading Genesis and Exodus. Exodus is where I really got hung up. And I remember reading the Gospels. I read Matthew's Gospel, and then I started reading Mark, and I was like, wait, this sounds like the same story, you know? I was that clueless when I started reading Scripture. Sure. But
That's beautiful, actually.
Yeah, and
because that's completely different than me. I became so familiar with these stories.
Yeah, I look back now, and I teach freshmen Hebrew Bible, and their familiarity is almost part of the pedagogical problem that I have to overcome. How do you dissituate them without emotionally disentangling them and get them to see the text afresh? And I remember just being utterly confused by everything Jesus said and did. He's got to be the roundest character in all of Scripture. I look back now fondly, saying, okay, I've actually was able to see things that my friends raised in Christianity weren't, just because of that kind of fresh adult exposure. I could see it for as crazy as it really is. But back to the question, do you testbed some of your explanations with various types of listeners?
We haven't really, have we?
No, it's been pretty natural where I have a very similar story in terms of with the Bible as you, Dru, and so that has shaped me in a certain way to come at these texts in a way that's totally different from Jon, who grew up over-familiar with them. And somehow the combination... We're just looking for clarity to both of us.
Yeah.
And somehow that results in something that resonates with a wide variety of people and backgrounds and demographics. So it hasn't... We've never done like a focus group, or if it makes sense to the two of us and we feel like it's succinct and brief and fits under 3 pages on a Google Doc, then
we're in good shape.
That's kind of been our litmus test.
One of my favorite filmmakers is Gus Van Sant, and I was in an interview with him, and he was asked who his audience is when he's writing and directing films, and he said he's his own audience, and I really appreciated that, because there's a lot of freedom in that, of not trying to figure out, focus group everything. Like, is it working for me? And that's how we've been approaching this. It's like, what kind of videos would we like to watch? Especially us in our 20s when we're trying to work this all out, or reading through the Bible for the first time, or at a fresh time. And if it's hitting that, then we feel good.
Yeah, we also think about like what kind of podcasts would we like to listen to, and then we just do something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you got me there. That's great. Yeah.
Actually, that was the origin of this podcast. Was Matt and I were like, hey, we wish there was a nerdy Bible podcast.
Yes.
And so we made it.
Yes.
And
here, just let me register that. Thank you, guys. I've been an avid listener from when I first learned about it, which was just a few episodes in, and I'm so grateful. Yeah, really grateful for what you guys are doing. So much so that I also want to publicly register my apology. Because I was like so excited. I mentioned the Unscript podcast on our Bible Project podcast. Right. And I'd listened to dozens of episodes, but I referred to you guys all as graduate students. And then I felt I was sick to my
I think it was pretty clear why you did
that. When I realized what I had done. Actually, I was curious. I wanted to ask you guys, a part of my own mentality, grad school was so intense, informative. I always still feel like I still have dreams about not being done with my degree and so on. So I still, when I see peers my own age in the field, I still just think of us as like the era of graduate students. I don't know if you guys feel that way, but that was where that came out of.
I resonated with John's. I am the dumbest guy in the room, but technically I'm supposed to not be, so I'm in a different situation. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
But, yeah. I think Tim,
problem with getting degrees.
Without casting aspersions, there is help for trauma survivors in grad school. Not all graduate programs are traumatic, but
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't find my graduate school experience to be traumatizing. It was rich. I loved it. I ended up staying at Regent College much longer than I needed to, just because I enjoyed it so much.
But not all programs are equal.
Yeah, and I affirm. That's right, and I affirm all of that. There was an undercurrent in the Hebrew and Semitic department at UW, where if you didn't hit high on the bar, you could get axed from the program.
I've heard that from several. But you know what?
And so
when I meet people who came out of that program, though, I have to say consistently they are no joke as scholars. So, which.
Yeah, I'm grateful. It puts the fear of God in you to learn philology like nobody's business. But I'm glad it's over. I'll say that much.
Are you guys up for a speed round?
Oh, sure. I usually love watching other people go through these.
Yeah. So Jon and Tim, the idea is that we ask you questions and you have like 3 seconds to answer the question, and it has to be about 3 seconds long.
Wow. Okay.
Does that sound good?
Wow. Excellent. Sounds horrible.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get. I'll take that as a yes. So here we go. I'll kick it off, and then Dru will take over.
Are you going to name which one of us, or do we just have to?
Yeah.
pick?
Yeah. I'll name you.
All right.
So I've already asked Jon, but I'll ask it again. What your favorite video you've produced, like beyond what you've said already?
Oh, for the Bible Project or in general?
Yeah. Oh, let's go in general. What else have you made?
I made a video on how to survive the Robot Uprising. You can Google that. It's one of my favorites.
Okay, we'll try to put a link in the show notes.
Okay.
Okay, Tim, what's your most significant eureka moment as you've researched for the podcast and videos?
That the design shape of Genesis 1 to 11 is made to preview every single element to follow in the Hebrew Bible.
Amen.
Yes, you know about this, Drew.
That was a nerdy amen.
Yeah, it was.
Sorry.
John, have you ever come close to firing Tim?
No, not at all. Never.
Okay.
Never even crossed my mind. I don't know what we would do.
do I get to ask any questions?
Yeah, you go, Drew.
Well, this one, I didn't even prepare this question, but it just hit me all of a sudden since we have both of them on the mic. Are you prepared to sing the theme song for Three's Company as a duet?
Oh.
No.
Yeah, I don't think I know it.
Nope.
What?
No. I watched the reruns, but I don't. I don't
know it. Sorry.
I don't remember.
It's before my time.
Too many Hebrew verbs ago.
It's anticlimactic.
Okay, Tim, what's the most significant work in biblical studies in the last 50 years?
Oh, that's right. I've remembered, but I don't remember.
3, 2.
For me personally,
1.
it was Sailhammer's Introduction to Old Testament Theology, but I'm not sure if that would play the same role in other people's lives.
Hey, we'll go with that.
Yep.
John, what's your favorite podcast episode that you guys have produced?
One on the image of God. We talked about the Westminster Catechism. That was really helpful for me.
Yeah, wow.
Tim, what's one idea in biblical studies that you think needs to die?
The earliest reconstructed meaning of the bits and fragments of the Hebrew Bible that we can take apart is where the meaning of the text is located.
John, what's been your most significant discovery in your journey with the Bible Project?
Sorry, can you say it again? You cut out.
Sorry, what's been your most significant discovery in your journey with the Bible Project?
That the Bible is both divine and human.
Cool. Tim, could you explain P967 in one sentence?
Or two.
It's an extremely important witness to the old Greek text of Ezekiel that should be pondered by a lot more scholars.
Okay.
Speaking of, can I ask a question here? Tim, what's your go-to move for depicting indelicate passages of Scripture? I'm thinking of Ezekiel 23:20 here.
Ooh, yes.
Because I noticed the Brick Bible online actually would act some of these passages out. Not the printed version, but the one online.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I know of such things. We've done this with a few Bible Project videos. We just blank out that text box and put censored over the top of it.
Yeah, we have done that. Yeah.
Clever.
Yeah. Oh, you guys had the guy giving the finger with the censored
Adam.
hand.
You know what? We've gotten a lot of trouble for
Especially
that
from
one.
They
these
implied
pastors.
that he gave the finger.
Yeah, we don't really know.
We blurred it out.
Yeah,
Could have been a
We
fist.
know where your mind filled
Okay,
in.
John, are you guys going to do the Apocrypha?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
Okay. Tim, do you still skate?
As a mode of transportation only.
Okay, what's your best move that you've ever done? I don't know the names of skate moves, but...
Oh.
Can I say Tim just this last weekend went wake surfing and he was shredding behind a boat.
That was
First time ever.
Fun.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
All right, we'll go with that then.
Yeah, deal. Okay, all right.
John, have you guys dropped any inside jokes into your videos?
Yes.
Could you tell us where?
Well, let's see. There's Furbies in the Image of God video.
Mm-hmm. Leviathan makes appearances outside of the Book of Job.
I'm afraid to say another one.
Have you heard the
Hippos?
Radiolab
Okay.
episode where the inventor of Furbies talks about the human interface with Furbies and the emotional connection?
What?
Oh, it's amazing.
No joke. That's amazing. There's just some people on our team who don't like Furbies, so they represent ontological evil.
Yeah, it was hard to figure out what kind of icons to use to represent evil without stepping on too many toes.
Yeah.
So I mean, we had like a nuclear weapon, and we had I don't know,
sword and Furby.
and then we had a Furby.
How much do you feel compelled? Like I was just talking about some of this with somebody else. Every semester, I get to the issue of Ra and evil, and how incapable our term evil is for kind of describing what's going on in the text. Do you guys feel obliged to stop at those points, or do you just do you say, "Oh, we'll pick that up in another"? I mean, evil is one of them, but I mean, there's dozens of things like this.
Well, you should do a word study on Ra.
Yeah, we actually started a year and a half ago doing short little word studies. Evil Ra
Excellent.
Is on the list.
I need it for my class, so I might pitch you some other ones here later.
Totally.
Drew, don't you think it often just means harm?
Yes.
Often it does.
Yeah, a terrible result.
But not always. Well, and that's not the problem. It's not the problem with the word used to translate. The problem is they bring a binary conception of good as opposed to evil. And those are two absolute categories.
Yeah. That's right.
Where God can't have anything to do with Ra. And
so then you have to work out when it is juxtaposed to Tov.
Which, of course, I think I worked that out. But
operative there.
Hold on.
All right. Well,
I've got a question.
We got to finish the speed round.
This is going back to your Easter eggs or hidden features in the background. Have you ever thought about featuring ever so subtly a talking pickle in the background of one of your...
No, I don't think we have.
It's never occurred to us, and most of our designers, our illustrators, don't even know what brand franchise you're referring to.
Oh, yeah.
They wouldn't even know it if they saw it. They wouldn't know what it is.
I was waiting to see if one of you would correct me and say he's a cucumber, not a pickle. But yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Larry. We can't say his name.
Yes.
It's trademarked.
Oh no!
The one who shall not be named.
You could bleep that
out. Are you guys ever going to crowdfund a verse a day calendar?
That will not happen.
Tim was joking around. We're really good friends with the YouVersion guys who do the Bible app, and they have this new feature where you can like put a verse. You can take a photo.
Yeah.
And
I've seen it.
And then then you can put a verse on top of the photo.
Match an inspiring Bible
verse.
verse.
Flames behind it.
Yeah. And then Tim the other day was like, said it takes all my self-control not to take a verse out of like
Leviticus and go to the butcher shop. And put it on our Instagram feed.
That would be our calendar. Is just
the fat verses the fat like belongs to the Lord.
And for today, your tongues will rot in your mouth.
Yes, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Is there a style of animation or a genre of animation that simply just would not work for what you guys do?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Never thought about it.
We haven't run into anything yet. We do like to change it up because we like to let the subject matter influence the theme, and then we also like our artists to tell us what they're interested in so that they don't get bored, and that usually generates a new style.
And along that line, do you ever worry about racist depictions in either voice or visual of ancient Semites, Egyptians, etc.?
Well, we do want to make sure we have brown characters, and not just
or diverse. I mean, I remember we commissioned a couple of our teams to create a full like ancient skin palette.
Yeah,
and they mapped out everything we know about every ancient people group. And then and it was actually really diverse.
The most trouble we ever got in is when we depicted God in the Image of God video, and he was a white guy.
And yep.
Well, I mean, he was clear. He didn't have a color.
But we were going Ancient of Days with the old man beard,
woolly beard. Yeah,
that's right.
And
we're super aware of it. If anything, my hope is that for people who are now using the videos as an introduction to the Bible, that what they see is just a really diverse set of characters throughout all the videos. And so sometimes Adam and Eve are African American.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're Middle Eastern. Sometimes they're Caucasian. I like just mixing it up.
Have they been Caucasian?
They have been. Yeah.
I guess they've been pink.
Lighter tones.
Yeah.
We're super aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Well, what's next for the Bible Project?
Well, we're starting season 5. We're doing a video on the identity of God.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yep. Yeah, totally.
And
we're going to do a series on the divine characters in the Bible.
Yeah.
Angels and Angel of the Lord, that kind of thing.
We're trying to finish out our How to Read the Bible series. It's going to take another 18 months or so.
Doing Psalms, prophets, and legal literature.
And then the big new thing is we Tim's gonna start teaching classes here at the Bible Project. We're gonna film them and we're gonna put them online. So just basically going through books of the Bible.
It'll be like two day real time. It'll be 2-day seminars. Just crash course on design and main themes of different books of the Bible, and then we'll chop them up into modules, and then start building a library that way. And long term, I'd love to start inviting other teachers and scholars into it and just create a really next level library of content.
Great. Well, we really appreciate you guys giving us so much time, and we think what you're doing is fantastic. I think you're connecting with ordinary people in a really profound way, but also I can say as a biblical scholar that I've learned so much from what you're doing. So thank you for being present in a really creative medium like the videos you're producing. So thank you.
I think what Matt and I really want to know is any ideas that we pitched here today, are we going to show up in the credits?
Yeah, you guys just want to write the Raw and Tove videos?
Yeah, Raw and Tove.
This will be
easy enough. We'll run with them.
I'm totally raw power.
Yeah, that's right.
You've been listening to On Script, delectable conversations on scripture and theology. If this episode has brought you inner peace or lit your biblical fire, please consider a small donation of just $2 or $5 per month. Information on how to donate can be found at onscript.study/donate.